One of my buddies, I bumped into him a few months ago, and he said, "Man, Reggie, you put on some weight." And I was like, "Well, yeah, I was only 6 pounds, 8 ounces when I was born." Jerk. So I played in the NFL for 6 years, and I used to give a lot of speeches about how I got into the NFL and how I was an undrafted free agent and the work ethic and the attitude and all of that. And about 10 years ago, I realized, well, that's kind of interesting, but who cares? What's really interesting is I was in the NFL. I was exposed to some of the most talented young men, physically talented young men I'd ever met, and some of the most talented coaches that I'd ever met. These coaches have the ability to get these egotistical, rich young men to buy into the team culture, to put aside their own agendas, to work together as a team. And I thought, how do they do that? And I really started to think back about, during my career, the things that I had seen. And once I got in the business world and saw managers of all types trying to lead people, I realized what I learned from those coaches is valuable stuff. And so now that's what my presentations are about how you lead in the NFL. I also talk about team building and how people can be effective members of a team. So I want to start off by sharing something that they might be curious about. Why is Tim Tebow not in the NFL? You know, Tim Tebow is one of the best football players in college football history. He brought the phrase Tebowing into the dictionary. Everywhere you looked, people were Tebowing all the time. I mean, animals were doing it, animated characters. Babies came out of the womb Tebowing. And for good reason. This guy is arguably the best college football player in the history of the NCAA. He was the first sophomore to ever win a Heisman Trophy at the University of Florida, or anywhere. At the University of Florida, he won 2 national championships. He set 28 University of Florida records, 12 SEC records, 5 NCAA records. Any one of those things would be the career highlight of most players' resumes. It would have been on mine. I don't have any of those things on my resume. And so Tim Tebow, you can make an argument, he's the best college player in the history of the NCAA. He was drafted by the Broncos in the first round. Once he got on the field, he won games, did amazing things, but after that year, Peyton Manning was available, so they sent him to the Jets. The Jets didn't keep him very long. The Patriots picked him up. Patriots didn't keep him very long. He went to training camp with the Eagles. Then he was out of football, working for the SEC network, and now he is making a bid for Major League Baseball with the Mets. How is it that a guy who has the talent of Tim Tebow, arguably the best college player in the history of the NFL, or history of the NCAA, can't find a home in the NFL, that 4 teams brought him in and said no thanks, and the other 28 teams won't even bring him in? So here's the basic challenge that Tebow had, is that if that football represents the quarterback, and let's say we have Broncos wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders up at the top and Broncos wide receiver Demaryius Thomas down at the bottom. I know that many of you are not Broncos fans, but I'm going to talk about the Denver Broncos today because I really think the first step in any 12-step program is admitting that you have a problem. And once you admit that to yourselves, you can start to move over and become a fan. All right, so we're telling our quarterback, I want you to watch that safety. And when the safety makes a decision, you make a decision. And to force that safety to make a decision, we're going to send Emmanuel Sanders on a deep crossing route in front of that safety, and we're going to send Demaryius on a post route behind that safety. And quarterback, you watch that safety. There's going to be a moment in the play where he makes a decision. He's either going to step up on that crossing route, at which point, quarterback, you immediately throw the ball over his head to the post route. Or that safety is going to open his hips to turn to run with that post route, and if he does that, quarterback, you immediately throw the ball underneath to the crossing route. That's it. Quarterback, you watch the safety. When the safety makes a decision, you make a decision. The challenge that Tebow had is that safety would step up, Tebow wouldn't throw the ball. Safety steps back, Tebow doesn't throw the ball. As soon as you pass through that moment in the play that was called in the huddle is over. Now you're telling Emmanuel Sanders, listen, just run around wildly out there and try to get yourself open. And Demaryius, run around out there, see if you can get open. Tebow, try to keep yourself alive for as long as you can back there. Finally, he throws it. It's a touchdown. The crowd goes wild, and they say Tebow has done it again. The magic, the mystery, the incredible, miraculous, crazy, ridiculous, unbelievable. He has done it again. But the coaches look at that play and they say, we can't practice that. Like, we can't replicate that. How long do you think the average NFL play lasts? 3 seconds is a good guess. 4 seconds. The average NFL play lasts 4 seconds. The coaches look at this play and they say, he held the ball for 10 seconds. We can't ask our wide receivers to run around for 10 seconds on every pass play. We can't ask our offensive line to block for 10 seconds on every pass play. We can't expect our quarterback to stay alive for 10 seconds on every pass play. Right? This is just an unsustainable model, and this is fundamentally the reason that Tim Tebow is not in the NFL. I mean, he has some other issues with his throwing mechanics and his velocity and accuracy. All those things you can live with because he's such a great athlete, but what you can't live with is when he doesn't throw the ball on time, because to be a good teammate, you have to be predictable. Those wide receivers have spent their entire lives learning how to run a pass route in a way that when they make the break at the top of the route, they do so explosively, they create a little bit of separation between themselves and the defender. If the ball's not in the air at the right time to take advantage of that separation they've created, they may as well not have that ability. Those offensive linemen have spent their entire lives learning how to block and be explosive, but they do it for 4 or 5 seconds at a time. If you're routinely telling them, you've got to maintain this block for 10 seconds, well, you're squandering this explosive ability they've developed over the course of their lives. So this is the lesson I learned primarily from this situation and others in the NFL, is that when you're developing a team, all the members of the team have to do things in a way that allows the other members of the team to also be successful. And so coaches have the challenge of getting all the players to understand that and believe that and operate. Well, the typical NFL player started being recognized as a great athlete somewhere around age 12. And then through high school, so much praise is lauded on them. Girls start to get interested. Teachers start to become deferential to them. They go to college. They're big man on campus. They meet the governor. They meet the mayor, not because it's good for them to meet the governor or the mayor, but because it's good for the governor or the mayor's career to be seen with them. And so they eventually end up in the NFL. The NFL drops a truckload of money on them. They go out and they buy Bentleys and houses and jewelry. They find some new friends. And and now they like watching sports on SportsCenter, not because they like watching sports, but because they like watching themselves on SportsCenter. And so then they get in the NFL, and who do they meet? They meet their position coach. Hello, position coach. You know what a position coach has? Zero authority. A position coach is not like a head coach who has all this power. It's not like an offensive or defensive coordinator. A position coach is the running backs coach, the wide receivers coach, the defensive backs coach, the quarterback coach, the coach of that specific position. They don't hire players, they don't fire players, they don't give raises, they don't dock pay, they don't even decide who's going to be in the starting lineup on Sunday, and the players know that. The player says, listen, this organization has already spoken about which of us is most important. They've said they're giving me $5 million a year. They're giving you $200,000 a year. So why don't you just back out of my way, let me do my job. You're going to put it on your resume someday that you coached me. I'm never going to put it on my resume that you were my coach. I'm the one who's driving the bus here. Get in my wake and let me do my thing. And I would I had a front row seat to watch this happen every year. And I'd be like, wow, what are you going to do, coach? What are you going to do? Look at that. It's beautiful. Look at this kid. What are you going to do? And so I would watch and see these coaches somehow had to penetrate through all of that stuff to get to these kids to convince them, hey, I can teach you something that's going to make you a better player. I can help you achieve some of the goals that you have, your personal goals and our team goals. And some of them are able to get these players to believe in them. So mostly, the ones I saw do it well, it was about having these one-on-one sessions with these players where you acknowledge their talent and you have a gratitude that they're on the team, because that's what these players thrive on. They thrive on being liked and people being grateful that they're merely in their presence. So these coaches would sit down and say, listen, I loved what you did in college. Can't wait to see what you're going to do in the NFL, but I'm curious about what some of your goals are. What is it that you want to accomplish in your rookie year? What to you would make for you having a great rookie year? Are there any players that you look at in the league who've been in the league 4 or 5 years that you say, I want to have a career like that guy? And who is that? And then what do you think they're doing to achieve that? What do you think they do during the week to achieve that on Sunday? How do they work out in the off season to achieve that during the season? What do you think they do in terms of studying to achieve all of that? And let's figure out how we can help you do that. I've been coaching in the NFL now for 23 years. I have coached some great players. I've seen the difference between the average players and the great players, and I have some ideas about how we can help you achieve your goals. And so it all becomes about what that player wants to achieve, and that coach is merely there to help the player achieve that goal for himself. Great coaches make deposits constantly. I mean, when you watch on Sunday, you see coaches being really angry and yelling and screaming, and that seems like the way that coaches coach. When you look at any kind of business magazine, if they have some guy on the cover who's the CEO of some company, it's a guarantee he's got his arms crossed and he's got a stern look on his face, because that's what we think leadership is all about. Do you know that coaches spend most of their time praising the players? Most of their time. This is literally, we get in our little tiny meeting room, and this is literally how much praise I would get. We're watching the previous day's practice, and we're getting judged on it. Coach says, Reggie, good job lining up with your heels at 5 yards deep. Great job firing through the gap. You got through that guard tackle gap cleanly. Didn't knock anybody off. Good job making contact with that linebacker. Feet. Great job making contact. That's awesome. I feel good. I'm like, thank you, Coach. Thank you, and thank you. Right? And it continues, play after play after play after play, so that finally, when he has to criticize me, which he eventually has to do, he criticizes me. He has so much in the bank that I don't take it personally. Because every time you criticize somebody, you're making a withdrawal on their confidence. But he gives me so much praise, he's got a lot in the bank, so I don't take it personally and get defeated about it. Accountability is a two-way street. When it's one way, it's fault finding. My wife is an auditor for Lockheed Martin. She's been there for 21 years. I live with a professional fault finder. I'm glad that's funny to you. Accountability. I guarantee if you think about the boss that you love the most in your life, the person who made the most impact on you, it was not somebody who just held you accountable. It was somebody who was accountable to you. Accountability is, hey, let's figure out what your goals are and what you want to work toward, and then let's try to map out what is it that you're going to do to achieve these things. And what am I going to do to help you? What resources am I going to provide? I'm going to check in with you on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis. We're going to talk about things. I'm going to remove obstacles from your path. I'm going to do whatever I promise to do to help you get to the next step in your path. And so those meetings aren't adversarial. It's not you're checking in on me and I don't have all my stuff done. That you start to look forward to these opportunities with your leader. And then be a problem solver. I don't have time to get into it. My time just expired, actually. But so if I can take 1 minute, I'll just explain this. In the NFL, we go through, we have our meetings on Wednesday. We learn the game plan. And then on that day in practice, if I'm out at practice and I say, hey, Coach, what route do I run on this play? Because I've forgotten. He's not upset with that because he knows we just learned it this morning. He'll just tell me the answer. On Thursday, I say, hey, Coach, what route do I run on this play? He's a little bit annoyed, but he's still not. We just learned it yesterday. He'll tell me again. On Friday, if I say, hey, Coach, what route do I run on this play? Now he's like, are you studying at all? You know we have a game on Sunday. You've got to be ready to go. I'm not going to tell you. Talk to your teammates. You figure it out. On Sunday, if I say, on the sideline, hey, Coach, what route do I run on this play? He's going to put his arm around me and say, he's going to give me the answer, because on Sunday, he's going to be a problem solver. On Sunday, he understands we got to win that game. I don't want Reggie to be afraid to ask me any question. And when I got in the business world, I saw this happen all the time, where people have a problem, they're afraid to raise their hand, and now this problem gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Creating a climate where people are not afraid to raise their hand is important. So I'm going to end there. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.